Hey, everyone. Welcome back into a new episode of the Cherry Heat Check. This is a New Mexico Lobos basketball podcast. Today is Wednesday, January 21st, as the Lobos are set to take on Fresno State in a Mountain West matchup later this evening. I'll be breaking that one down later in the show as I preview the Bulldogs coming in to the pit this evening. Also give my thoughts on the Lobos' loss in San Diego over this past weekend, 83-79, going down to the Aztecs after battling back from a 15-point deficit in the second half. Bullion really playing strong in the second half, but the Aztecs, Miles Bird, just too much for the Lobos to overcome. But first, I want to hop into the Mountain West action that took place last evening, Tuesday night. UNLV handing Utah State's second straight loss now after going down to GCU in Phoenix over the weekend. Utah State loses in Logan, 76-86 is the final. A game that they were favored, I believe, by over 15 or 16 points. A game where they led by 14 points in the second half. UNLV and Josh Pastner find a way. Freshman Tyron Jones for UNLV, big man, was just phenomenal. Rebounding, finishes at the rim, shooting free throws, blocking shots, just all-around defensive effort by the freshman Jones. And Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn also putting in 21 points for the Rebels, and he knocking down a big three-pointer to help the Rebels really seal it down the stretch. And you really got to wonder about Utah State now, as they look similar to last year, as they were non-conference darlings, almost going perfect in the non-conference again this year with one slip-up, I believe, to South Florida, coming in as looking as the strongest team in the Mountain West, going into conference play, now dropping two in a row, sliding behind San Diego State there. Also, other games last night, Boise State now winning a couple in a row. They go into Laradice in Wyoming for their last game there of conference play that they will play, and they win 81-65, led by Drew Fielder, and Leland Walker poured it in for the Cowboys, having 30 points, but he was the only one really doing anything, as Boise State looks like they are now playing better basketball. Javen Buchanan back on the court now for the Broncos, that helping as well. And the Rams hosted Air Force in Fort Collins, winning 81-52. As we know, Air Force's coach Joe Scott has been suspended indefinitely over the past week. This was reported about 3 days ago. There's an investigation going on into his treatment of cadet athletes at the Air Force Academy. So interesting stuff for Air Force as they continue to play bad basketball even without their coach. San Jose State going to Reno last night, falling again as they are very shorthanded. They go down by 31 points, 87-54 to the Wolfpack. Corey Camper Jr. has been on a tear for the Wolfpack as he put in 19 more points tonight. And Steve Alford and company are very happy with the way this season is playing out so far. The transfers that he has brought in are starting to play together well, and I think they are a force to be reckoned with. Lobos will play Steve Alford and the Wolfpack this Saturday in the pit on Retro Night, and I am so old now that the 90s era that I grew up with is now referred to as Retro Night, but I am looking forward to seeing what they do for that game. So look out for the Wolfpack on Saturday. But as we look at the standings now, with Utah State losing their last two games, of course, New Mexico losing to San Diego State, the Aztecs now sit in first place alone at 7-0. Utah State and Nevada sit at 6-2, while the Lobos sit at 5-2, and the UNLV Runnin' Rebels now climb up to 5-2 as well after defeating Utah State last night in Logan, and GCU, who also defeated Utah State over this past weekend, as I mentioned. They sit at 4-2, and the Lobos' next opponent, Fresno State, 3-4, and Boise State behind them at 3-5 right now. And if you look at the overall health of the I think Utah State has kissed their at-large bid goodbye with this loss to UNLV. And they will now either have to win the regular season, in my eyes, or win the conference tournament. Lobos still have a chance at an at-large bid per many of the analysts, including ESPN's Joe Lunardi today had the Lobos on the play-in game, I think the 11 seed, and of course San Diego State looking like their resume may hold up if they continue to play well. But Magoon Guath will be out for the Aztecs tomorrow night as they have a tough one. Against GCU in Phoenix. So Aztecs will be a little undermanned, but Guath did not play against the Lobos, as we know very much. And the Aztecs still able to come out on top in that one. So as we all thought, Aztecs and the preseason would be the number one team. We're seeing it play out that way now. Utah State starting to slide. Nevada and the Lobos ready to pounce on second place there. Sole possession of it after this weekend, depending on what the Lobos do versus Fresno. But as I mentioned, Lobos going down to San Diego State, as we know, 83-79, a game that the Lobos had the lead for at times in the first half. I believe it was tied at 30-30 about halfway through. And there was just a stretch of time where the Lobos put up three-pointers that resulted in San Diego State either getting to the free throw line with Miles Bird getting to the line or finding other ways to score. Of course, Dayton Albury finishing with 6 turnovers. He kind of reverting back to his decision making that he was having early in the season, where he would leave his feet without knowing where he was going with the ball, and the ball coming out hot or in directions that his teammates are not ready, or ways that are easy to steal for the defense. So he not really playing off 2 feet, making good decisions, not very effective in this game. And Olin going with Tenet down the stretch, and I'll talk about that a little more. But Bojan, even though he turned it on in the second half with a double-double alone in the second half, I think he had 18 and 10 rebounds just in the second half. He also had 6 turnovers, including a critical one down the stretch. So Lobos had many opportunities in this game, shooting the ball very well in the second half, leading to that comeback. 50% from the field overall in the second half, and 45% from three, hitting 5 of 11 in the second half. Just wasn't enough in the end. But the 3 keys that I had mentioned previewing this game all really played out to be things that occurred and kept the Lobos in the game. Things obviously that did not win the game, but had them right in position to do so. And as I mentioned, that 3-point shooting overall in the game, 12 of 30, 40% overall. I think about 4 or 5 percentage points up from their season average. And then the Aztecs turning the ball over, I thought that would be critical. They did so, turning it over 16 times. And of course, the Lobos using that at times to create their offense on the other end. Of course, down the stretch, that being key with a bullion steal and then conversion on the other end by the Lobos. But Lobos turned the ball over 17 times themselves, so really canceling out any turnovers they caused the Aztecs in that case. And then my final thing here I was looking for is New Mexico to fight back after getting punched. And they definitely did that. Was it too late? I don't think so, because they took the lead late in the game And that's where some of the question marks came up about coaching decisions and foul calls and things of that nature. The three things I wanted to focus on that were questionable getting a little more attention here, obviously, after the game, due to it being kind of a interesting decision to make, was the foul call by Boyan fouling Miles Heide of the Aztecs. I believe only a 34% shooter, or around 35% on the season, and maybe around the same on his career. Olin opting to have Boyan foul him while the Lobos were up, I believe, 2 points, playing the percentages, um, hoping that Heidi would miss the front end of the 1-and-1 or only make one out of the two. Of course, he knocks down two, having the guts to step up and do that as a bad foul shooter in a tough situation. Hats off to him. Um, but I think the other thing that was interesting, and we also saw in the Colorado State game, is Olin opting to play Uriah Tenet the final 3 to 4 minutes over Dayton Albury. And even though Albury not having his best game and um, really struggling to be efficient on offense, interesting to see Tenet be in. Obviously, he taking that final jump shot there that was short. Many questioning that, but just something to keep an eye on, as Albury has been getting taken out of these close games late, it seems, with Colorado State. And then this game against San Diego State, opting to go with Tenet down the stretch instead. And my last thought here is just Chris Howe still nursing his injury. This is a game I think he definitely would have helped, matching up better with the length of the San Diego State Aztecs. His passing, just his overall smartness on the floor, I think would have been key in this game, especially down the stretch. Lobos also had to Javis Miller in instead of Chol for some of those final possessions, and that could have just been the substitution patterns playing out that way. But some interesting um, choices of who was out there on those final plays down the stretch. And I think the sooner Chris Howe can get back, the better, because he is a big part of this team. The recruiting news to come out regarding the Lobos over the weekend also came out of San Diego, as Tavid Johnson, the 2027 commit for the Lobos, was playing his high school game there, and Eric Olin and staff checked it out before their game versus the Aztecs. And per Mark Ziegler of the San Diego Tribune there in San Diego, he reported that Tavid Johnson may look to reclassify and become part of the 2026 class, as he is only a junior right now, but apparently considering entering college next year and coming to join the Lobos early. So we will continue to monitor that. Exciting times here, as Lobos looking at a 4-star recruit in Johnson, a 6'2" guard that's scoring over 25 points a game right now. Also was recruited by high-level schools, so looking forward to watching him play, whether it be 26 or 27 here. So the Lobos now looking to bounce back after that trip to San Diego, as they've had a few days off in preparation for Vance Wahlberg's Fresno State Bulldogs, who come in at 9-9 on the season, winning 3 of their last 4 in conference, including wins over San Jose State, Colorado State, and Wyoming, losing to San Diego State, Nevada, Utah State, and UNLV so far in conference, led by Jake Heidbreder, player who played at Air Force for 2 seasons before transferring to Clemson, coming back to play in the Mountain West for 1 more year, his senior season. He leads the way so far. He plays almost every minute of the game and scoring 17 points a game right now for Heidbreder, averaging 2 rebounds. He will let about 6 to 7 three-pointers go per game, shooting only around 31% though from deep on the season. His defense though and tenacity really bringing his leadership style to the team this year, and they've played a lot better basketball than the Bulldog team from last year. Of course, that team last year was terrible. They also had players gambling on player props and themselves, other teams within the conference. So, fresh roster here for the most part, but they did return one of the best guards in conference in Zayn Collins. He going down with a little bit of an injury in the last game, but he is not listed on the injury report in this game. He averaging about 13 points a game, over 5 assists, so one of the best distributors in the conference. He'll shoot about 2 3-pointers a game, but he only shooting 28% from deep on the season. And Deshaun Gorey being a force down low, winning Mountain West Freshman of the Week honors last week. Somehow he winning it over Jake Hall, who just had a phenomenal week, including a trip back to his hometown where he put on a good showing as well. But Deshaun Gorey, freshman, winning that award. He averaging 10 points and um, 4 rebounds on the season. Other big man that will join him down low is a rebounding force, a Frenchman, William Jacques. He's starting all 18 games so far for the Bulldogs, and their leading rebounder with over 8.5 rebounds a game. Obviously, he will be matching up and banging with Bullion. Bullion needs to obviously watch out for his foul trouble, as he is kind of flirted with foul trouble for it seems like about half the games this season. JT Rock not really having the effect in that San Diego State game as we've seen him have maybe in the past 5 to 6. So look for Rock to bounce back against Fresno State. I think at home he plays better off the energy and gets into the flow better. So both big men will be matching up with two solid players in Deshaun Gorey and William Jacques for Fresno State. Another freshman that's been playing well as of late has been David Douglas Jr. for the Bulldogs. He has been scoring in double figures as of the last 5 or 6 games. And then another freshman, a native of Fresno, DJ Stickman, coming off the bench. He only averaging 3 points, but bringing energy, 2 rebounds for he as well. And Fresno State playing solid defense so far this season, that really being their stronger calling card than offense so far this year. They being a team that like to push teams on the outside to shoot the three ball. Look for UNM hopefully to have more success attacking the paint in this game than they did against San Diego State in that last one. Um, but I think the Lobos will be able to get to the hoop. Albury hopefully able to finish there at a higher clip. And I think getting Bullion involved early, like I always mentioned, off of actions, pick and rolls, positions where he doesn't have to have his back to the basket and dribble multiple times. Because as he mentioned in the Lobos presser on Tuesday, he's really more of a traditional forward and not a center. He feels more comfortable, I think, facing the basket than he does with his back to it, even though he's very good, obviously, pushing guys with his rear end or back and slamming it on their face, as he did 4 or 5 times against San Diego State. But I think they need to get him involved early. He only had 3 field goal attempts in that first half against San Diego State, and settling for multiple possessions with 3-point opportunities early in the shot clock is not, I think, the recipe for success for UNM. But looking at this offense for Fresno State, they turn the ball over at an alarming rate. One of the worst in the country at protecting the ball in New Mexico, one of the best at taking the ball. So expect the Lobos to get out in transition. Albury, that's where he really thrives. And maybe that's why he's not in the games down the stretch, because the game is a little tighter in the final 3 to 4 minutes. There aren't as many fast breaks where he's able to really get into the defense and penetrate. Whereas in the set offense, Tenet seems to be able to get to his spots a little better, and maybe that's what Coach Olin is saying. But either way, expect a lot of turnovers for Fresno State. Expect the Lobos to have their kill shot opportunities of those 10-0 runs. And I think New Mexico just continuing to grow on defense as far as I'm concerned and understanding the spots they need to be, mixing in that zone when JT Rock comes in the game to confuse the opposing offense at times. So look for Fresno State to just draw fouls as they are one of the better free throw shooting teams in the country at 75%. Jake Heidbreder looks to get to the line. He shot double digit free throws a couple of games ago. Um, but look for New Mexico, I think, to win this game by double digits, I think, and get their 22nd home win in a row in the pit. As the halftime performer will be none other than the amazing acrobatic unicyclist, the Red Panda, who will ride around on a unicycle, flip bowls on her head in the air every which way, and it is a sight to be seen. I've actually been able to see it a few times out here at the old Oracle Arena where the Warriors used to play in Oakland. I think I've seen her maybe once or twice, and it is a fantastic show. She is incredible, and I think battling back from an injury herself. She is a dog. You'll see her performing at NBA arenas. She's performed on the Pat McAfee show. Anywhere there's a big crowd, you can expect to see Red Panda at one time or another. So hats off to Ryan Berryman, the UNM athletic department for continuing to get good entertainment in there to the pit. And to wrap the show here, someone that used to entertain in the pit, Donovan Dent, had a monster night for UCLA as the Bruins take down Purdue 69-67 as Donovan Dent battled Braden Smith of the Boilermakers, two of the best point guards in the country, as Donovan Dent has been catching a lot of heat on social media and just from the media in general by what I've seen. He bouncing back in a game, proving why he was an honorable mention All-American at New Mexico and Conference Player of the Year last year. Um, and just unbelievable, actually, to me, what some UCLA fans were saying over the past week about wanting to bench him and send him back, obviously, calling out all the NIL money he got, but happy for Donovan. Did get the chance to interview him last year at Media Days for about 10 or 15 minutes. He's very humble young man. I'm happy for his success and happy that he bounced back to show that he is one of the best players in the country, even though he hasn't really had opportunities or hasn't capitalized himself on this opportunity to show it in the Big Ten. I believe he's still third in assists in that conference, finishing with 23 points, 13 assists in that game, a three-pointer down the stretch, and multiple whip around passes that I know we all miss seeing in that cherry. But I feel good that he has kind of turned it around here, hopefully, and can end the season on a good note. I'm going to call it a night here, a morning as or afternoon as you listen to this. Looking forward to the Lobos' next two games versus the Bulldogs, and then retro night, 90s night from the era that I grew up with. Kenny Thomas, Lamont Long, Clayton Shields, Royce Alney, Luke Longley, all the legends that we know and love that really brought it to the forefront with Coach Dave Bliss, hoping they bring back some of those logos and use it on their uniforms. I know they're in good hands with interim AD Ryan Berryman, and looking forward to speaking with you guys after this Fresno State game. Thanks again for all the listeners and subscribers, and I'll check you out on the next Cherry Heat Check. Thank you.